The chick you talked to on the phone? 0.
Colleague in the Guard looked at his tattoos and actually reported him to be an insider threat because it was so extreme.
Could you tell us what the tattoo is?
From the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh.
People who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
He used a very specific terminology. But putting all of that aside, a phrase that was
first uttered to defend persecuted Christians in the Middle East, just like they're being persecuted today. What are you talking about?
Oh, my Jesus.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to watch one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen in my life, which is Michael Knowles taking on Wajahat on Piers Morgan. And Wajahat comes out with a head full of steam and a bucket full of talking points and gets completely and utterly destroyed by Smooth Mickey with one question. So let's get straight into it and just watch Michael Knowles licking his lips at these talking points. But before we get there, guys, don't forget to quickly smash that like button on the way in, as it does help me out enormously. And subscribe to the channel if you're getting value. So let's get into it.
But I think Hegseth, well, we also know he's going to pass. I mean, Thune, who's the majority leader, has already said it. I mean, it's basically a done deal already. But I think he's going to reform the military very quickly. And I think we're going to get back to having a functioning military that people can be proud of, rather than counting, you know, how many lesbian generals that wear dog collars we have. As important as that is, Michael Knowles.
Why are you pointing at me? Hold on. Wait.
I'm not going to bring that allegation to the fore before we have a Senate inquiry. Let me go to Wajahat. Wajahat, I mean, I've heard the criticisms about Pete Hegseth. I know him a bit from when I've done stuff on Fox. He's always been perfectly good to me, and always, I thought, a very good performer on television. But I also thought that under fire yesterday, and some of it got a bit personal and ferocious, he conducted himself calmly. He seemed very well informed. He clearly has some opinions about the military which others may not share. But I certainly didn't get a feeling of somebody out of his depth. And when you actually look at people who've held that job in the past, yes, some have been generals, but they can be pretty intransigent sometimes in their view about how things should be. And some have not been generals and are eminently less qualified than Pete Hegseth. So what was your view?
Look, I know that Republicans actually like affirmative action because they're perfectly fine with mediocre MAGA men and lowering the standards to the point where Pete Hegseth, the Fox News host, can slither under it and be the Secretary of Defense. For people who don't know, the Secretary of Defense overlooks a budget of over $900 billion, 3 million people. He is responsible, in particular, for defense policymaking. We're talking about law and order, national security. You're going to give it to Pete Hegseth, a man who was in the National Army Guard. His fellow colleague in the Guard looked at his tattoos and actually reported him to be an insider threat because it was so extreme.
Based?
This is a man who wrote a book called American Crusade.
Based?
In his book, Pete Hegseth said, I am too extreme for the U.S. military.
Based?
In his book, Pete Hegseth said, I support these militias, these paramilitary forces. In his book, he calls the enemies liberals extremists.
Based.
So much for unity. This is a man, not just adultery, but sexual impropriety. He has been alleged of sexual impropriety and sexual assault. If he has nothing to hide, release the woman that he has signed to an NDA and paid off. Let her tell her story. This is a man whose own mother sent one of the most damning emails I've ever heard and read in my life. If your mother sends the email that Pete Hegseth's mother said you have failed in life, accusing him of being a sexual abuser, a man whose own Fox colleagues have said, allegedly in the New York Times, that they're worried about his alcoholism and alcohol problem, and a man who has economic impropriety allegations. He was released from 2 nonprofits. What are we doing here, Piers? Listen, with Marco Rubio, I disagree with him. You don't see me here complaining. Qualified guy, intelligent guy, Secretary of State, fine. Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, what are we doing? You guys are putting lipsticks on a pig, and you're making America less safe. And the right wing in MAGA is doing this for Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
You're making this country less safe just because you're bending the knee to Donald Trump. And he wants a lapdog, who, by the way, I'll agree with Dave on this, who's good on TV.
Okay,
so that's what
I'm going to come to Michael.
Before security for Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
Release the woman from the NDA. I want to hear from the woman. Secretary of Defense, let's defend women.
All right, you made your point.
That's my take.
You made your point.
Is
Any
that Chris
negatives
Morgan?
while running?
He works
It's a joke. It's a joke, Jai. It was a joke.
Don't you just love it when these liberals come out with these talking points thinking that they're really doing something and saying something when all they're basically saying is that Pete Hegseth is the answer to the base conservative spreads. He has extremist tattoos. We'll get to that. He wrote a book called American Crusade. In his book, he writes that he's too extreme for the woke military. I mean, when does he start and where do I donate? So guys, let's now watch Smooth Mickey absolutely violate this man and have him completely and utterly malfunctioning and regretting that he ever stepped in
Do you have
the
any
arena
idea
with this
how one
ugly Italian
finds
woman.
It was a joke.
like a
Yeah,
supplier
don't you take
or
that
whatever?
seriously. Let me bring Michael in here. I mean, look, a whole litany of stuff there, almost all of which was put to Pete Hegseth.
Like it could be
I thought he
anything,
actually
like just so
batted
like
away
you can,
all of that stuff. We got to say
like say you have a fucking store or whatever,
All they
you
were
have a
out to do,
supplier
Mr.
that
Chairman, was to
delivers whatever
destroy
products
me.
you can, sell it.
And
Like
why
how
do
the
they
fuck,
want to destroy me?
how the fuck do
Because
you even go
I'm
about
a change
finding
agent
one?
and a threat to them.
Do you
Because
just go up
Donald
to
Trump is
anybody and
going
say,
to
hey,
choose
can you
me
make this
to empower
product
me
and
to
supply
bring
it
the
to me
Defense
for
Department back to what it really should be,
X amount of
which is
dollars or
war
whatever?
fighting. So I am willing to endure these attacks. But what I will do is stand up for the truth and for my reputation. False attacks, anonymous attacks, repeated ad nauseum, printed as nauseum, as facts. We have provided to the committee, Mr. Chairman, and I know you're going to share, on the record statement after on the record statement for people who have served with me, worked with me.
Like I want them to ship it to.
Vets for Freedom.
I want
you
them to
name
supply
it.
it to like a
From the top
warehouse
of the
that I
chain
have.
to the bottom, who will say I treat them with respect, with kindness, with dignity. That's men, that's women, that's black, that's white, that's every background. I have prided myself as a leader of respecting people, being professional.
Michael, I thought that was quite an effective response, really, because a lot of it is just innuendo, hearsay, unsubstantiated allegation. Other stuff has been settled, as Wajahat says. That's not uncommon in America. It's incredibly common for people to do NDA settlements or whatever with no claim or liability attached. Where do you sit with this? I mean, it looks like Hegseth is going to get
you. That's not common.
Sorry?
That's not common, not for me. I don't know about you, but that's not common.
I'm not saying for you or me.
There's a
I'm
police
just
Yeah, like hypothetical, like yeah, like I'm wondering, like how does that work? No, no, I don't make it.
report where I sexually assaulted a woman and I signed
in
it for an
America,
NDA,
that
okay.
kind of settlement is not uncommon, my point. Because generally, in the American system, a lot of things get settled that way without any admission of liability or wrongdoing, which is the case with Pete Hegseth. Michael, where do you sit with this?
Well, so much of what Wajahat just said is not true, or as you point out, Pierce, is completely unsubstantiated, like the allegations that Pete Hegseth shows up trying to work. Excuse me one second, Wajahat. I've been on that morning show with Pete a number of times. I've been in studio with him a number of times. The only thing you could accuse Pete of is being too alert and energetic. I found it overwhelming, actually, while I was there, tired, trying to dust the sand out of my eyes. But you suggest that the graduate of Princeton and Harvard, who for decades has been in the U.S. military, served his country honorably, that he's somehow unqualified to work at the Pentagon. The most egregious accusation you make against him, though, is that he's an extremist because he has a tattoo. Could you tell us what the tattoo is?
I just wanted to quickly remind you or tell you about the reality-based store most basic merch in the entire world, we have got some fantastic pieces up there from all of our counterculture merch. We've got mugs, we've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've even got a freaking bag. Guarantee you guys will love the merch, no doubt. All of those links are going to be right below, and if you did want to support the channel, that is a great way to do it. Let's get back to the video.
The tattoos, specifically, I did not make the allegation that he's an extremist. It was actually...
You repeated the allegation, so what's the tattoo?
As an insider threat.
Yeah, right, so what's the tattoo?
I can tell you, it says...
It was his fellow...
Let Wajahat answer, because Wajahat raised the tattoo. Wajahat, it's a fair question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about? Wajahat, hang on.
Wait.
Wajahat, hang on. Simple question.
Dude,
what is
like
this tattoo
so
that you're so upset about?
to entry.
I wasn't the one upset about it. I was talking about his fellow colleague. This is exactly what I said. His fellow colleague.
Do you know what it was?
In the U.S. Army, called him out as a potential insider threat.
Well, what is the
looking at
tattoo?
the tattoos on his chest.
What is the tattoo?
Also, I called him an extremist based upon his own book. Read the book,
What
American
is the
Crusade,
tattoo?
his own words.
If you don't know what the tattoo is, just admit it.
Oh my lord. Listen,
Would you
what
like
is
to
it?
tell you what the tattoo is?
I want to, wait.
No, I'm genuinely intrigued. Do you know what it is or not,
We got a
Wajahat?
panelist.
Wajahat, do you know what it is or not?
She hasn't spoken yet. A woman hasn't spoken yet.
She's going to come. She's going to answer the question. You're not answering. Final question to you,
I did
Wajahat.
answer it, but
Final chance.
I got my colleague right here.
Be honest. Be honest, Wajahat. Do you actually know what that tattoo is or not?
Listen, what I do know is I read his book, and in his book, if you read it, called American Crusade, in his book, wait a second.
Be honest.
His book.
Be honest.
I am, look.
Ironically,
like how, like, in, like, the
no one's going to
1960s
crucify you
bending
if
the
you don't.
knee.
You could work a regular job and like afford everything, right? What if, like, hypothetically, like the media has just convinced everyone that China is the complete opposite of that, but if it was actually the case, would you just move there? Would you be like, yeah, I'm done with the West? Done. And the women aren't like sluts or whores over there. Yeah, you would move, yeah. Yeah.
Know
for
the
Donald
answer,
Trump,
but do you know the
putting
answer?
our national security at risk for Pete Hegseth. I'm telling you everything, and you guys are finding ways to spin. Why are you guys
No, we're
okay with a
simply
man
asking you.
who has an NDA
We're
with a
simply
woman that he
asking you.
allegedly sexually
Do
assaulted?
you know what
Why
the
are you guys
tattoo
okay?
is
I
that
said
you got
exactly
so
what I
upset
said.
about?
It was his colleague. His colleague called him out as an insider threat, not me. His colleague. And I also said, go to his book, read his words.
But just to be clear, Wajahat, you've got
Wajahat,
you've got
U.S. military. Pete Hegseth's own words. Why are you
stop
okay
talking
with
for a
that?
moment. Wajahat, you don't know, do you?
Why are you guys okay with that?
You don't know, do you?
Literally in his book, American Crusade, he says he's too extreme for the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh. All right, let's look it up right now.
No, don't look it up. Don't look it up. Let's go back to Michael. Michael, hang on. Michael, we gave him his chance. He obviously has no idea. Michael, what is the answer?
This falls along a threat as an insider.
I'm going back to Michael now.
2021 pegged Pete Hegseth as a potential insider.
You had 98 chances to answer and you failed the test. Sorry. I'm going to Michael. I'm going to Michael. Don't talk over each other. Michael.
The tattoo in question is called a Jerusalem cross. That this is a medieval Christian symbol, goes back a long time. In fact, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, there was a Jerusalem cross on the floor of the cathedral, and on the program for the funeral, there's one other tattoo that some have suggested could be extremist. It's the phrase Deus Vult, which is a medieval Christian slogan, a long traditional slogan that refers to God's will, and it goes back a long way. These are very traditional, very mainstream Christian symbols that not only are not extreme in any way, but which even the people who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
All right.
His insider guardsman did it, which is what I said. And also I said that he called himself too extreme for the U.S. military in his book. That's pathetic.
Okay.
So is Pete Hegseth lying that he's too extreme in his book?
Let me go to Julie. He's been waiting.
He's too extreme for radical leftists.
Let me go to Julie. Let me go to Julie.
He said it. Is he lying?
Be gentlemanly, please.
So, guys, one of the best moments of my entire life watching that. I mean, Wajahat over here comes in with his talking points. He comes in hot. And the reason why they're called talking points and not well thought out points is because that's all they are. They're just quick little points. And his whole entire tactic here is just to shotgun a bunch of these points and make this person sound as vile as possible. But the problem is, when you actually get cross-examined about the things that you're saying, turns out you have no idea what you're talking about, and it is not well thought out whatsoever. And one of the funniest parts there is when he tries to virtue signal his way out of it. I mean, that is like Harry Houdini at his best. Wajahat tries to say that we need to let the women speak.
Say something funny when we can't wait. I don't feel like being funny right now. And that's just the kind of sexist vocab that's going to keep you in the kitchen. Sit your ass down.
Funny that, actually, because it's one of the first times I've ever seen him not pretty much at the point of climax hearing his own voice. But what we've just seen there from Wajahat, the man with the name like a karate move.
You want me to show you tough? I'll show you tough.
Wajahat, 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 Wajahat is somebody who loves the smell of his own farts so much.
I wasn't telling you to go. I was trying to smell my own fart.
That he actually cannot say the words, I don't know. And instead, he will just go into a full-on liberal malfunction. Just an amazing moment there. And like Michael said, the tattoo is of a Jerusalem cross. And the other one says Deus Vult, which literally just means God's will, or God wills it. And it's recognizable because Pope Urban II said it when he called for the First Crusade to reclaim Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslim control. I can't say it's something that upsets me too much. But these days, it's more of a symbol of unwavering Christian faith and pride in being a Christian. So let's move on now to when Michael Knowles gives the other liberal on the panel a history lesson, which is just as satisfying.
We have a lady who's not spoken. Julie, be waiting very patiently. Your view of this? I'll tell you what, before you answer, I know you said in your Substack about this, under normal circumstances, Pete Hegseth, would be precluded from serving in any leadership role. So explain why you said that.
Well, I will explain in 1 second. Let me go back to something that was said in the very beginning, that he spent more than 10 years at Fox News, and that's what qualifies him to be in this position that he wants to be in. I spent more than 10 years at Fox News. I don't think I'm qualified to run the DOD whatsoever based on my time at Fox News.
I said that was one of them.
Well, I don't think that's even a remote qualification. That's one.
Being able to
Two,
communicate ideas as the Secretary of Defense and explain policy is actually a very big part of the
There are plenty of qualified Republicans out there who can run the DOD who also are good on television. It does not need to be Pete Hegseth. Secondly, again, you talked about NDAs. I am bound by an NDA at Fox News. If I were not bound by an NDA and Fox News wanted to release me from that NDA, I could tell you about my time with Pete Hegseth. Unfortunately, that's not possible. But I will say that the reason there are so many people who anonymously came forward at Fox News is that because they're also bound by confidentiality provisions, which 1/3 of all American workers need to sign on their first day of work. And if they were to go public, they could get sued. The reason this accuser is not heard from is because, according to the New Yorker, she tried desperately to meet with Joni Ernst on the committee, and Joni Ernst turned her down. So the reason that she has not been able to come out publicly is because she has an NDA, and even privately, she could not meet with a senator on this committee who's also a rape survivor to share her story, because that rape survivor did not want to hear from a woman who was going to put her potentially in a position to vote against Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth has written himself while at Princeton, saying that women who are passed out, if you have sex with them while they're unconscious, that's not really rape. Right? Now, the American military has a tremendous sexual assault problem. A horrible sexual assault problem. I have spoken to women in the military who say on deployment, it's not a question of if, but a question of when they will be sexually assaulted. We cannot possibly have somebody running our military who has said that women who are unconscious deserve to be raped because it's not really rape. You can just go have your way with them. So I don't know which soldiers you've been talking to who think Pete Hegseth is a great thing for the military. There's not one woman out there who cares about being assaulted on deployment who thinks that this is the person that needs to be in charge of the United States military. And as for the cross that you talked about, yes, Deus Vult, which is the cross that he has, and the slogan that he has, it is an old Christian cross. The phrase, however, was uttered by crusaders as they were slaughtering Jews and Muslims during the Second Crusade specifically. So it's not just a random cross. It's not just a random phrase.
That isn't true. The phrase.
It's not true.
It is true.
The phrase was uttered after the Council of Clermont, when Pope Urban II declared the crusade. It was actually probably Dieu le veut, but it's been rendered in Latin as Deus Vult. It has nothing to do with slaughtering Jews. It has nothing to do with slaughtering Muslims, because the Muslims had invaded Europe, not the other way around.
Oh my God, are you really saying that the reason the crusade, which was sent to the Holy Land to liberate the Holy Land, from whom? From Jews and Muslims. And that is a phrase that you want to...
I'll tell you why the crusade began because the Eastern Emperor asked for help from the Western Pope, because the Seljuk Turks were slaughtering Christians in the Holy Land, because those lands were Christian before the Muslims invaded in the 7th century. So that's why.
No. Those crusades. Listen, those lands became Christian after the First Crusade. Okay, so let's be very clear.
The lands were Christian
in the
First and Second centuries, and then the Muslims. Islam didn't exist before the 2nd century. What are you talking about?
Okay, I could listen. I can go all day if you want to talk about the Crusades, but the point is, I can also show you literature where people but what that has to do with Pete Hegseth is it's not that he has a random cross that talks about his faith in Jesus Christ. He used a very specific terminology. But putting all of that
aside, a phrase that was first uttered to defend persecuted Christians in the Middle East, just like they're being persecuted today.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the Crusades,
that's who you want as the Secretary of Defense. Wonderful.
Yes, someone who defends the person.
Julie, finish your point. Julie, finish your point, and I'll go to Michael.
My point is that I cannot even believe that something the Vatican apologized for is something that you're defending, which is the slaughter of Jews and Muslims during the Crusades.
What did the Vatican?
Excuse me, the Vatican said the Crusade.
What are you talking
about? My Jesus! You know what? Why don't you give me a call after this, and I will walk you through exactly.
All right, let's try and bring things back.
So my favourite part of that was when Michael was correcting her claim, saying that it isn't true, and then Wajahat comes in and says it's true.
It's not true.
It is true.
As if he knows anything after literally losing all of his credibility. And guys, rumor has it that after this interview, Wajahat's credibility is still floating out there somewhere in the ether, never to be seen again. But this woman, who I don't really know who she is, but she is hilarious. I mean, she did the exact same thing when Andrew Wilson was on the other week, a video which we covered, which is that
like
she says
scenario,
something,
right?
she gets
to
refuted,
China
and
or
then
whatever.
when she actually gets pressed about the things that she says,
but over there,
there's
no social media to prevent.
Look how flustered I am talking to this sort of
basically
lowly
degenerates
peasant.
and idiots from making a lot of money.
But anyways, guys, just another effortless W from our boy Smooth Mickey. He just sailed on in on his Italian magic carpet on a puff of cigar smoke and then just floated right on out. So guys, don't forget to check out
no YouTube,
TV.
no Instagram, no nothing. I guess. And they probably make less money in person, so. Yeah. Dude, imagine what you can do if you make $1,500 a day. Yeah, dude, I'm convinced that like women, they'll never really understand the value of money because it's just given so easily to them. Like if a woman says she makes a shit ton of money, it's just like, okay, whatever, right? Because it's just like, yeah, that's par for the course. But if a dude makes a shit ton of money and like, he's just some fucking, he looks like a bum or a loser, like I have far more respect for him than some fucking hot chick who, sells her pussy. Yeah. God, I told you about that chick at the office, her friend. She got paid like $40,000, some shit. Dude, crazy, man.
We grant them rights, and they also have
Like I don't
a
get
right
like
to vote.
they're making way more money than most dudes.
I'd like to
Yet
hear
women have the highest
some of this
percentage
kind
of
of explained and
debt
broken
or whatever.
down by Andrea.
It's like what the fuck?
And that is my opening statement.
Thank you, good sir. Riveting. Excellent setup for a glorious duel. Andrew, your response. You have 7 minutes.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive into this. First, you say that you believe a woman having a right to vote based on, you said something along the lines of, you don't understand how it is that a woman doesn't have the right to vote just because a man hasn't allowed her to have that right to vote, which to me seems kind of absurd, because he then went on to say, yes, it's true that men grant women rights. Now, I think you were trying to make the statement that you think society, right, which is everybody and nobody, and anybody and somebody, grants rights to everybody. But this would actually be inaccurate. So the first thing that you said is society at large has granted the X factor's rights. So the X factor would be basically everybody that's not dominant man, right? Gays is a marginalized group, black is a marginalized group, things like this. But that's also not true. Men granted them rights. That it was men who granted them rights, and men can take those rights away from those groups whenever they so choose. And they do all the time. They've done it all over the world. They've taken rights away from gays, and there's nothing gays can do about it. They take rights away from women, there's nothing women can do about it. They take rights away from people all the time as a dominant social group. You say that rights have to be granted. This is also not true, or at least it's only a half truth. Men can grant themselves rights. If they get enough of them together, they can decide that even if they're being oppressed, that they don't want to be oppressed anymore. They don't like that shit very much, and they can take up arms and grant themselves rights, and have done that historically many times. So, no, men don't have to necessarily grant other men their rights. That's the point. Whereas they do have to grant it to women. They have to, because women can't do that, and men can. The women's suffrage movement, which you brought up, that was not women fighting for their rights. That was women whining for their rights. There was no fight anywhere. Where was the fight? Where were these women taking up arms? Where were they bashing the men over the head? Where were they taking the men on? Where were they taking on the patriarchy with hands, feet, fist, and gun? Nowhere. They were just whining, and they were heavily supported by men's funding, or it never would have happened to begin with. So no, they've never fought for rights ever. They just won. They don't fight. They can't fight. What are they going to do? They can't do anything. Men as a collective can simply put their foot down on women whenever they so choose, even as a small collective. Even if they're outnumbered 10-1, they can still do this. We've seen this in France, for instance, in World War II, where 2/3 of the population post-World War II was completely and totally devastated. Only had 1/3 or less. Some estimates as low as 19% of the population was men. That's how low the estimate in some cases could be. because of how many died between World War I and World War II. So, no, I disagree kind of heavily with all of your positions. Now, when it comes to kind of your main contention, which is voting in and of itself, I don't consider it to be necessarily evil or moral good or moral imperative of any kind. I think it's just one system of many systems, but still men are going to be the ones who create that system and grant that system for it. So that's my position on that.
Okay, so do you believe women should have a right to vote?
Real quick, before we get in the back and forth, I just want to say a couple things. Thank you for the opening statement, Andrew. Here in the Crucible, we're doing a little bit differently. I, as the moderator, will not be getting involved and just officiating for the FBI agent and Agent Mossad. I do not endorse anyone's perspective on here. I am the moderator for the sake of discussion. We'll go for an hour and a half, back and forth, and then we'll take questions and super chats. I will not be reading the super chats until the Q&A. But until then, good luck, guys.
All right. Go ahead, man. What was your question?
Yeah, so do you believe women should have a right to vote or not?
If men grant it to them. I mean, I don't think that women I don't think that men ought to do horrible or evil things to women. I don't think that they ought to do that. But I also think that they're in a particularly unique situation due to the fact that they make society run, and they're the operators which make society run, where that's going to be uniquely their decision to make.
Okay, but the basis for whether or not you think women should have a right to vote is whether or not men decide to give them a right to vote.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so say if men had an interest in the political system to vote for, say, repealing women's rights, you don't think women should have any sort of political power in a system where they can also vote and for their own benefit?
Well, it's more correct to say that they wouldn't. And it's not a matter of what I would, what I would ought. It's just a matter of they could not. So whether I would ought it to be true or not ought it to be true, what descriptively is true is that they can't. They can't stop men from taking away their rights. They just can't do it. They have
right, but you did say that you're against the idea of doing horrible things to women, right? So like,
yeah, and men.
In theory, you'd be against something like spousal grape.
I mean, it depends on how that's defined, but I mean, in general, any type of grape I would be against, yeah.
Well, like strangling somebody, forcing yourself upon them, you'd be against something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe still to this day, there's a few states that don't actually recognize spousal rape. So, right. So women would be,
and so men, if they wanted to, could go into those states with guns, and they could say, "You're going to change this fucking law," right? But women can't. They can't do that. That's the distinction. No, they can't.
They can't. So they can't.
No, they can't. Can you name a single time in history where they?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the women's suffrage movement, France in particular, so not just pitchforks, but also they got things like halberds and spears, and they actually marched and demanded a right to vote. Bombs and fires were also set on businesses during the women's suffrage movement.
How many men did women kill for their rights?
Well, I don't know how that matters because really, ultimately...
Because if the men in France said, "No, fucking put your clothes down, you stupid bitches, or else we're going to smack the shit out of you," they couldn't do anything.
Well, so not every right that's fought for requires, like, extreme physical violence. Like
it does. It always requires force. Yeah. Well, how do you back up rights without force, Richard? Tell me.
Well, I'm saying not every right that is being granted has required a world war.
Well, first of all, I think depending. I'm trying to figure out what you mean, but I think it has. I think every single right you have requires force. I can't think of a right that doesn't require force to be enforced. Can you?
Well, to be enforced, yes, but I'm saying to be granted, no.
Yeah, to be granted, because, and I'll tell you why that has to be true. Because if you grant a right to a person, what actually gives it the right if there's no force? So how could they keep the right if there's no force allowing them to keep the right? In other words, if I say, no, wife, you don't have any fucking rights. She can call men and they can come arrest my ass using force. So force is the mechanism for rights.
So you have a right to free speech, like the First Amendment. How many times have you seen police interactions where police officers violate First Amendment rights? So somebody's protesting, they say you can't have that sign here, they get arrested. Well, how does this play out? This plays out in court. I don't think there's ever been a situation where, I don't know, like there's a shootout over whether or not somebody can hold a sign up.
There
has like a cop and other cops.
Well, there has been, except I can give you a perfect distinction, which is the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. These are distinctions where people have said, no, we're not going to, pay maybe your tax or your tariff, or we don't want this type of compelled speech, or we don't want to be oppressed in our speech in these ways. Various factors came into all sorts of small micro-revolutions. In fact, another example that I can give you, I believe that it was called the Battle of Athens, which happened inside of America. That was an American city. And the police magistrate was so corrupt that men went home and got their guns and went back to town and literally overthrew the local magistrate and put in their own government. So in other words, when they felt oppressed, they could just go do something about it. I would like to see an example of that by women anywhere in history ever.
Okay, so I don't know of any, again, aside from like women's suffrage, where women did actually in fact take up arms, at least in Europe.
Well, they carried shit. That's not taking up arms. Taking up arms.
That's the same.
No. Taking up arms is you're like actually walking down the street and killing people. That's taking up arms.
Okay, well, in that example you just gave, were people shot and murdered?
Yeah. In fact, there was a massive shootout. They raided the National Guard armory, and they had a battle all night.
Okay, in any case, like, ultimately, if you have enough of a societal disruption to where the only sort of, the only way to resolve this is either by, again, granting rights or coming to, I don't know, some fight and literally having force decide whether or not rights will, like, who gets the rights they want. Women have done this. Like, again, women's suffrage. It's just that men decided it's not worth it to actually take up arms against women and fight. No, that's absolutely wrong.
Here's what happened. Most women were against the vote. Most women, let me say that again, were against the vote. Most of them. So you had anti-suffragettes, which aren't covered in history very often, but the anti-suffragette movement was much higher, and feminists used feminist propaganda, and they used the money of giant elite men in order to push through the agenda. And it still wasn't even popular after it passed. It still wasn't even popular after it passed for a long while. And you want to know what the reasoning is behind the anti-suffragettes, the women who were against the right to vote, is they said we can't enforce our own rights. We don't have the ability to do that. So why should we be able to vote? Why would we be able to vote? We can't enforce it.
When you say that, like, what do you mean by women cannot enforce their own rights? Like,
it means that as a small monolith of any size, virtually any size, there could be like some maybe if you have, let's just say, 10% of the population who decide that they're not going to follow or obey a law, or they're going to oppress women, or they're going to do whatever the fuck they want, there's really not very much that can be done about it by anybody except men. So men are going to be the people who push force, and therefore they're the ones
Bro,
who
I'm better
grant
than
her
Michael Schumacher.
rights either
Okay,
to
dog?
themselves or to
Don't
women or to
fucking
anybody.
test
So
me,
you could take
dog.
the same tone in slavery. You could say that men
Bro,
granted men
yo,
rights,
fucking buy me
men
an
fought
F1
for
car
their
right now and I'll
right to
do it.
not be slaves. All of this would be true, but women play very little in the way of a role of that because they just physically can't.
Do
What
it,
do you
you
mean
piece of
physically
shit.
can't? Like, women can pick up a gun and shoot. So what do you mean physically can't?
Bro,
Yeah,
you
but
think
have
I
you
can
seen
fucking
what happens in the statistics when you take female soldiers and you apply the statistical or the standard, the application standard for just regular basic training, and have women go through it? They have to give them entirely different
Hey man,
standards
I'll be
because
content
their upper
being
body
part of
strength
the pit
is
crew.
so slight.
I'll
Their
just
lower
be the
body
guy
strength
who
can't handle it. They have completely different
what is it,
standards.
loads the
Why
gas,
to this
then
day, I
fucking
don't believe
sets
there's even
everybody on
been a
fire.
single woman who has gotten through actual SEAL team training. Not a single one.
I don't think I'd be
This is
fast
the
enough to run
difference between men
my
and women.
hand-eye
Now
coordination's not good enough.
you operate under physique. You know this. This is true. You know that you're ginormously strong in comparison to women. Just the amount of weapons that you could wield would be superior to what a woman.
Why not?
I've seen. So I don't know if the
Whoa.
Army's
Why
done,
are you calling them pussies?
their own research. I've seen the
Why are they
research
pussies?
on Marines. The Marine Corps did a study comparing female and male, soldiers. Yeah, women are less physically capable, so they can't carry as much equipment. I think it's like a difference of 30 pounds or something like that. Total equipment they can carry. They're also more likely to get injured, this and that. But like, again, there are like within group differences where you can find exceptionally physically fit women and exceptionally like inadequate men. So you do in these like stats see women who are outpacing some men.
I don't
like
dispute that.
Like, I've known dudes who are like 5 foot.
There are exceptionally strong women, and there are exceptionally
but
weak
like at the end of the day, the Marine Corps did determine that it is suitable, especially in cases where like certain combat roles can't be filled because we have a huge obesity problem. Like the amount of eligible recruits is really narrow, especially in a situation where you're not going to have forced conscription. It's going to be very difficult to fill all the necessary combat roles.
True, but their preference would be that men fill those roles and not women.
Well, that would be the preference, but it'd also be the preference.
But why would it be the preference?
Like again,
why would it be the preference, Richard? Why?
Wait. Well, let me finish. It'd also be a preference to have women fill these roles as opposed to obese men.
Yeah, that's true.
So, do you think fat people shouldn't have a right?
There's
to
plenty of
vote on the
fat
basis
women, but
that
there's
they
plenty of
come from military?
fat women too. Like
Well,
I mean, in equal numbers.
there are.
So
like,
they're the only
fat
reason they're
people might
drawing.
have the right to vote.
The only reason they're drawing from women is because there's not enough men. That's it. And the other thing is that the preference here is always going to be for men. Why, Richard? Why is it always going to be for men over women when it comes to the military?
Men on average are more physically fit.
Right, because fighting isn't just about picking up a gun. Fighting is also about living in trenches. It's about having very little to eat. It's about being physically strong enough to endure the elements. It's about a lot more than just, oh, I picked up a gun and now I can go fight for my rights. That's not how it fucking goes.
Yeah, well, again, like, you're kind of glossing over this. There are requirements for the military. Like, you can't just be like a fat retard and end up, joining the military. There are certain physical and mental standards. And at the moment, there are so few men that meet those physical and mental requirements that we're now recruiting massive amounts of women more than ever before to fill combat roles.
Yeah, but there's still very few women who can meet those requirements. There's still very few women who can meet those requirements, even with all these fat men around. So it's still always going to be unequally yoked to the point of extremity, unless you can demonstrate that men or that women, even going up against unhealthy men when they're at their fittest, are going to prevail, because most of the time, even then, they're not going to. So even if a woman who's 5'5" and jacked goes up against a 6'2" fat dude, I'm still putting my money on the 6'2" fat dude, and so are you. You are too. Tell me you're not. Tell me you're not. But for the most part, average, you would, right?
Like, again, that depends. I've seen MMA fights where, like, a man goes up against a woman, but the woman is about the same size.
No, these people aren't
and
trained
is
in MMA, dude.
but
These people aren't. Most people are not trained in hand-to-hand combat and years of training in MMA. That's ridiculous. The average woman who would have to fight for her rights against a monolith of men, even if they were big fat men, okay, big fatty fatsos. Women are 5'5", 5'6", 5'7". You're telling me you think that physically they're going to do better against men?
Right, but the point that you're glossing over is that there's many men who are completely inequipped or inadequate to either fight in the military or even fight for the rights.
Just as many women. So again, you still have the equalization. You still have the equalization.
I don't understand why you're looking at this from a group level and not, to some extent at least, at an individual level. Like, should people who are
that would be the worst way. That would be the worst way to look at it, because of an individual, no individual can enforce their rights for the most part. They can only do it on a small scale, maybe against other individuals. But it takes a collective, or at least a small group, to be able to enforce the rights for themselves and the people who are around them. Individuals themselves, they have a hard time enforcing their individual rights. In other words, it's essentially impossible to do. So if there was one woman who said, I want the right to vote, and nobody else wanted her to have the right to vote, you would agree with me immediately. She ain't getting the fucking right to vote, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, that's just it. But if you have, so we would have to look at this as collective. Same thing with men. If one man wants the right to vote, he ain't getting it. But if you have 100 million men who want the right to vote, they're fucking getting it.
Okay, so is this purely a descriptive claim you're making, or are you also making this a sort of a normative claim where it's almost like a might makes right? Like, because there is such an amount of power within a certain group, they should be able to either grant or taketh rights away.
Right. No. So let me explain this. Might makes right is fundamentally, from my Christian worldview, untrue. I think that might descriptively makes. I'm just not saying that it ought make right. In other words, I don't think that just because you're mighty and you enforce your will, that means you're doing a moral thing, or you're doing a righteous thing, or you're doing a good thing. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And going back a bit, you don't think it's either a good or bad thing that men grant women's rights? You're like neutral on it?
Well, no. I mean, I think I would have to descriptively say that because this is the hierarchical order which is put forward by our almighty creator, that it's probably a good thing. And yes, I do think that it's generally a good thing for the hierarchy to be run by men. And it always has been, and it always will be.
So you think it's a good thing that women don't have a right to vote?
If men decide that they don't have a right to vote and they do it as a collective, I think that, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Why would that be a problem?
Okay, well, for quite a long time, and even to this day, in some states, and in probably most countries, women have absolutely no recourse if they are raped by their husbands. There's no laws granting them a protection against something like that, like that sort of spousal abuse.
That's not true.
That is true.
No, it's not true.
That is true.
Then show me an example of where you can pin your wife down by force and rape her, and this is not something which she can go and get recourse from the law. I don't believe you.
Well, again, there's no particular law written on the books in certain states stating that a woman can be raped by their spouse. And actually, and by the way,
well, hang on. That's an affirmative right. In the United States, rights are affirmed in the negative. So in other words, to frame this the best way I can for you, you don't have a right to vote right now. Did you know that? Your right to vote is affirmed in the negative. You have no right to vote. You've never had a right to vote. Then what the amendment says specifically is that if a vote is had, they have to let you vote. But there's no actual right to vote. You can look it up right now. There's no actual right to vote in the United States. Your rights here are affirmed in the negative. In other words, our Constitution only spells out what the government can't do. It doesn't spell out what it must do. So it can't restrict our guns. It can't restrict our speech. It can't restrict this. It can't do this. It's not allowed to do that. It's not allowed to do this. It doesn't say what it has to do.
Let me look at the
Yeah, just put in voting negative rights. Voting is a negative right.
Only 2 states, Oregon and New Jersey, have abolished the marital exemption rule. The legal system of most countries exempt the husband from prosecution of the rape of his wife. This is from Office of Justice Programs.
So that's an affirmative right. But so what? I need you to demonstrate for me that in all 50 states of the Union, that if a woman goes to the police, and just don't use the R word, say rape,
Sure.
okay? But if she goes to the police and says, I was raped by my husband, he pinned me down and forced me into a sexual intercourse, that she has no recourse. I don't believe that.
Okay, well, for one thing, there are many women that you can find. You can put out a poll on your Twitter, or
anecdotal.
whatever social media.
Anecdotal, and you don't believe them yourself, Richard, because I saw a video of you yourself make the claim that a woman had lied about getting raped.
Women can lie.
That's right. So you yourself
sure,
don't believe all women. You don't believe all women, right?
No, I believe people based on the strength of evidence of their claim. But I
think that's
like,
fair.
We don't even like. By the way, even if you fucking don't believe that there's been a single case of a woman getting raped by their husband and having no recourse.
Not what I said.
In the United. Well, we can literally look at other countries who, on the books, like Islamic countries.
Well, do you plan on invading those
have an
countries?
explicit right. Sorry.
Are you planning on invading those countries?
Okay, well, the point you made is that men have dominion over women, essentially.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones who grant the rights and can take it away.
So I can say it's immoral in those nations for those men, under my Christian worldview, to rape their wives, to force their wives to have sex with them. I think that's morally abhorrent.
Why would that be morally?
If you can demonstrate, because it would be against my religious values. It would be against my ethical system. So I would say that that's immoral.
Well,
but
no, it wouldn't be.
I can also make the descriptive point that unless you plan on invading those nations to stop them, then you're basically agreeing with me that men have the dominion. Because there ain't shit you can do about it, there ain't shit they can do about it.
Well, Andrew, you wouldn't disagree with him because, again, you said men have dominion over women. If men have had the imperative to deny those rights to women, then that would be the right thing to do.
It's not unlimited dominion. That's not what I said. That wasn't my claim.
Well, you didn't say
I claimed
unlimited
that.
dominion.
What did I claim specifically? That women should not be treated poorly. They should not be treated badly. They should not be abused. None of these things should happen. Dominion, the same way that
consequence of not granting them those rights. Like
it's not a consequence of that. You don't have to beat a woman because you can't vote. That's stupid.
No, I'm saying that's a consequence of not being allowed power in the political system or the legal system.
No, it's not.
If women don't have a right to vote, if women don't,
so men are just going to start raping and pillaging women because women don't have rights that men already gave them. Like men, who do you think gives it? Men give them the rights to begin with. They're benevolent enough to give them the rights to begin with. Do you think that people who have mothers and they have daughters, men who have mothers and daughters, just walk around abusing women? No, yes. Bro, they don't do. No.
Yes.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
You don't think men abuse their
I didn't say that there's not people who do abuse. It happens, but it happens from women on men too.
Okay, especially egregious physical abuse, that's almost entirely coming from men. So yeah,
unless it's on children. Unless it's on children, and then it's mostly perpetrated by women.
I don't know about that.
Well, it is true. 55% of all child abuse is conducted by women and not men.
Okay, that's interesting. But in any case, then that would also mean 45% of the abuse is coming from men. So you're admitting that this is commonplace.
Like that doesn't mean it's commonplace. Why would that mean it's commonplace? That doesn't follow. Just because you look at the stat and you can break down the percentage of who conducts a crime doesn't mean the crime is common. That's absurd.
Okay, so family abuse is extremely common.
Well, physical abuse?
Yeah,
No.
that would be extremely common.
No, it's not.
Let me see. Percentage of children who experience physical abuse.
Yeah, but I want this defined as to what is considered physical abuse.
So approximately 1 in 4 children experience child abuse or neglect in their lifetime.
I want physical abuse.
Yeah, of maltreated children, 18% are abused physically, 78% are neglected, 9% are abused sexually. So that is out of 25%. So if 18% of 25% are abused, you can do the quick math there. I think that's about 5% roughly.
Okay, so that's still not a high number. Just so you know.
That is a pretty high number. 5%.
Well, no,
that would be 1 in 20.
So these are people.
1 in
right?
20 isn't.
Well, I said physical abuse. Whatever. I don't know what these other things mean. I don't know what neglect is. How do they define neglect?
Explained. I didn't. I mentioned physical abuse specifically. It'd be roughly 5%.
All right.
1 in 20 is low to you.
Well, I don't believe it's 1 in 20. You haven't defined the terms of what constitutes abuse.
Well, I mentioned physical abuse specifically.
Yeah, but I don't know what that means. What is considered physical abuse?
Well, that would be physical. Hitting, slapping.
Yeah, but hitting's not physical abuse.
How is hitting not physical abuse?
Because there may be times where you need to make a correction, especially with a child, which is an important correction in order to spare them additional pain that they would not ordinarily have. Like, for instance, don't put your finger in the light socket, Johnny, and you smack Johnny's hands so that he remembers not to put his finger in the light socket. What's that?
That's not physical abuse. So,
of course
like,
not.
Shoving. So if I were to shove somebody out of the way, like if they were going to be hit by a car, like that would be an analogous example.
Right.
That's
So I
not
believe that
abuse.
spanking, which is often introduced as a prism of abuse inside these studies, is not abuse.
It is.
It's not.
It's provably
It's correction.
Using corporal punishment against a child has been proven to be bad in every conceivable way.
Yeah, by people who have no children. What do I care what they say? Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Sorry, you're relying on your own personal anecdote. Well, I hit my kids and they turned out good.
You're relying on your own personal anecdote. The only thing you're saying is that, which is, what's the proof? That people's opinions are that if you spank a child, that the correction doesn't work?
Okay, sorry. Do you think prospective cohorts are less reliable than your own personal anecdotal experience?
It's not just my personal anecdotal experience. People have been using the cane on children since the time forgot.
This is insane. So
it's
again,
not insane. There's nothing wrong with spanking.
Yes, there is. And
no, there's not.
According to prospective cohorts, children who get spanked or caned or any sort of corporal punishment is used as like a.
Send me the study.
Sure, like any sort of corporal punishment that's used against children.
Okay, and so here's the research that shows that smacked kids do better in life. And I'll send that over to you. A study has found that kids smacked until about the age 6 turn out better. Not only do they tend to do better at school, but they also likely do well for themselves later in life as compared to the kids who've never been spanked by their parents.
Yeah, that's hard for me to believe, but more harm than good, summary of scientific research on the intended and unintended effects of corporal punishment in children. I don't know if you want me to send you that, but
it's by the way, it's a troll study. I'm joking.
Okay, sure, but in any case, if you look at the aggregate research, children who receive corporal punishment as means of correcting behavior, so smacking, spanking, caning, whipping, belts, they do poorer in pretty much every metric. They're less likely to complete school. They're more likely to be depressed. As far as relationships in the future, they're less likely to have long-term meaningful relationships. they're more likely to be.
Let's
end up
assume
in
for
prison.
a second I make a concession for all of this, that spanking children is by far the absolute worst way that you can correct children. What does that have to do with the fact that men grant women rights?
Well, we went off course a little bit, but you were basically saying that on the basis that men grant women rights, you were assuming that men are in general
benevolent. Yes, I assume that men in general are benevolent. And
well,
if
they're
you make
certainly not.
really, so you think if we make a law tomorrow that says that murder is legal, while I would concede that murder will increase, are you just assuming that men are just going to start murdering with wild abandon? They have no self-control, they have no virtue, they have no nothing. Would you start murdering people, Richard?
No one. Well, yeah, I probably would. Actually.
Yeah, you probably would. So maybe maybe the reason you think the way that you do is because of the way that you are.
Well, no. So no one is entirely benevolent. There are people who do mostly good, but do some bad things. And I think if you were able to peer into people's personal lives, people that you thought were really nice, may not treat their families or their wives or spouse with as much respect as you'd appreciate. So
I'm digging into this, by the way. In the living situation with the highest odds of significant abuse is when children live with their mother and her male partner who's not the biological father.
Right, okay.
So biological fathers aren't running around probably very often abusing their children. That's not the case in point here. When you start to dig into this, it turns out that women seem to be the problem here more than the men, once again.
No, you just admitted it's the men.
No, I didn't. In fact, I told you the child abuse rates for women are higher than men.
You literally just showed me a statistic where men are the perpetrators.
I didn't say that men were the perpetrators. I said the highest likelihood of abuse is when the biological father's not present in the home.
Yes, and when the woman has a male partner. So
that doesn't mean the male partner is that doesn't mean the male partner is perpetuating the abuse if 55% of it's committed by the women, Richard.
Okay, well that's a separate statistic. You're just conflating the different.
The conflation would be by you. That would be by you.
Conflating the different sources.
That would be you. Conflating.
You just told me.
I never told you that that the cause of the abuse is by the man. You made that up. You made it up. So you're conflating. I didn't conflate anything.
Okay, in any case, I think we can agree that there is a significant enough rate of abuse against women and children perpetrated by men where you may want to include these people in the legal and political system.
Why?
Because okay, well, if men are like going to have complete dominion and you have a society where, like, again, women do not have little to no recourse when it comes to them getting abused, them getting raped,
they do have recourse.
Getting abused.
Whoa. That's two different things. What do you mean they have no recourse? They can go to men and they can get recourse, which is what they do right now. Right now, if a woman's being abused and she feels like her rights are impugned upon, and she goes to court, and the court rules in her favor, who enforces her rights? Who do you think shows up? Do you think it's women who show up to enforce her rights, or do you think it's men who show up to enforce her rights?
Well, there are women who are police officers.
The exceptions to the rules.
I don't know how that's an exception. There are female police officers.
Yes, there are female. There's even female loggers, but you know how many there are? It's less than 1%.
I don't know why that matters. There are women who are responsible for enforcing
because men are responsible for the building of all infrastructure. They're responsible for the building of how society runs, to keep the electrical grid up, to keep the entire system in place. Not only is that one function of the enforcement of rights, but also they are the ones who are going to end up physically.
125.
They're going to physically enforce the rights of poor women, which is what they do now.
You don't see a potential issue where if you have a society where men are generally indifferent to, I don't know, the plight or suffering of women, where, oh, you got raped by your husband? Sure you did, toots. Okay, I'll write down a report. like you don't see an issue where
Of course I do. That would be an
Well,
immoral
do you
and
think-
non-virtuous society. However,
Well, certainly.
this would have to do.
Would you blow up a hospital if you could get a harem of 1,000 women? What if the hospital was only filled with terminally ill people who were gonna die anyway? No, let's say that wouldn't happen. What would you do if I did it? And everywhere, every time you saw me, I was with like 7 like. And what if I was just like absolutely carefree? I was like happier than I usually am. Yeah. Bro, like I think I would do it. What's holding you back? Just like morals or whatever? What if I did that, right? And we both die, and I'm led into heaven, but you're not. Yeah. And what if, God's just like, you denied the opportunity I gave you, and for that, you're going to hell. But your friend, he was brave enough. He was, yeah. You didn't see the sign? Yeah. So you didn't see the detonator, the hospital, and then the 1,000 women? Damn, dog. But, dog, God works in mysterious ways. So you want to put one video over top another. I don't know. Yeah.
This has nothing to do with whether or not the women are involved in the political system, but
It
how
absolutely
virtuous
does.
the men are. How
No, it
virtuous the men are.
absolutely does.
Why?
It absolutely does. You
Why?
don't think
We don't have to
think,
listen to him now, Richard. We could just take rights away from women tomorrow,
You
couldn't
don't
we?
think if women had a right to vote, they could vote in, say, police chiefs
Their
or
right to vote
politicians or
only
elected
exists
officials?
because we give it to
I don't
them.
care. That's the point. Like, if women have a right to vote, you don't think they'd have power to elect in?
They don't have their
police
power
chiefs
is
or...
it's a faux power.
Can you
They don't
stop
have
cutting me
real
off?
power.
Can you stop cutting me off? You don't think if women had a right to vote, there would be a greater likelihood of, say, police chiefs, mayors, politicians, officials that are more sympathetic to their problems?
Why would they be more sympathetic to their problems just because they could vote?
Well, I'm saying if women could vote, they could elect in officials that would be more sympathetic to their problems. And because women make up 50% of the population, that would be a big motivator for certain politicians to actually be sympathetic
As
to women's
long as
problems.
men
So
allow them to vote, sure.
Fucking Christ.
yes, but what I'm pointing out is you're probably going to see lower instances of certain people in society getting mistreated, abused, not being considered if women have a right to vote.
No, well, that I dispute. Why would you see more abuse in society just based on the vote? How much abuse do you think that there was pre-women voting? I don't understand.
A lot.
Why do you think
What
that
do
there
you
was
mean?
a show me, prove, demonstrate that there was significantly more abuse before women could vote?
Okay, sure. Let me see. There have been big changes in grape rates over time. Let me see. So
that's not what I'm asking you for. I'm asking you to demonstrate for me that men, before women could vote in the United States, were just running around abusing fucking women. That's absurd. Why would they do that?
I don't know what you mean by that, but there have been reductions in spousal abuse, including
that's because less people are getting married.
No.
Yeah.
No. This is rates per capita. And
yeah, I understand, but even if it's per capita, if you lessen the pool, you're still going to have less.
No.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
It is how it works.
No, that's not how that works.
That is how it works.
That's not how that works.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Population.
If you only have a pool, hang on. If you only have a pool of 5 people who are going to get married, okay, they're 5 groups, and you go ahead and you take that group. Do you think that the per capita ratio of those 5 people is going to be the same as if you did 100 million? Do you think it's going to be the same across the board?
If all else is equal, then yes.
All else is never equal. Come on, dude.
You could have a situation where you have such a small sample size that okay, if you only have one couple versus 100 million, you're not going to see a meaningfully
well, when did statistics, when do you think statistics started for spousal abuse?
I'm not sure, but
yeah. Well, the thing is that I don't think in the 1700s there was rampant abuse of women, and I don't think in the 1800s there was rampant abuse of women. I don't know where you came up with the idea that there was.
Well, I don't know how you could figure that. Like again,
give me some evidence to the contrary.
Well, what's the figure? Like 1 in 5 women in their lifetime will likely be a victim of a sexual assault of some kind.
Well, they'll say that anyway.
Okay, well, we could say they're all liars, right?
I'm not saying they're all liars. I'm just saying
right.
This is all based on self-reported data.
Well, okay. Well, this isn't just based on self-reporting. This is also
the 1 in 4 would be based on self-reporting. If you were just going to use police stats, it's nowhere near that high.
Well, if you're looking purely based on like FBI statistics, I think that does correlate with the 1 in 5 figure.
Show me
lifetime 1 in 5.
Show me that the FBI statistics show that 1 in 5 women report that they've been sexually assaulted.
Well, you also have to take into account relatively small proportion of these attacks are actually reported. So if you're only going to
then how do they know about them if they're not reported?
Again, they use other methods of research too.
You mean like we're getting them to report? How could they possibly know it without them being reported? Can you explain that to me?
Again, these aren't like you don't have to have perfectly 100% accurate stats. I think this is for all crimes, by the way. About 20% of like burglaries are reported. Roughly like 20% of homicides are reported. Like this is for all crime. So
so you're just making estimates?
No, it's not just an estimate.
Well, how is it not just
what I'm
an
pointing
estimate?
out is these sorts of crimes are very common. They're common enough where you may want to include 50% of the population as part of the legal and political system so that they could perhaps influence changes that benefit themselves or society as a whole.
They're just you're just all you're doing is adding an extra
Okay,
step.
well,
They're just petitioning. They're just petitioning patriarchal men again for their rights, regardless of if they can vote or not. Here's why: if men collectively decide tomorrow that women can't vote, they can't. But if women decide tomorrow collectively that men can't vote, we can. That's the difference. It's very simple.
Okay,
there's nothing they can do about it, and we can do whatever we want because that's just the way it's set up, bro.
Right. That's why Nazi Germany happened.
That's not that. Why would that be a Nazi principle? Almost every nation on planet Earth, which are not Nazis, had to use this principle, bro.
This isn't a principle. I don't.
It is a.
Hang on. You just first of
well,
all,
hang on. What do you mean it's not a principle?
You claimed this was just a purely descriptive observation you're making. So if it's
no,
principle,
I didn't
then
claim
that's a
that.
normative claim.
I did claim a descriptor, but I also gave you an ought. My ought was due to Christian virtues, Christian virtue ethics. I don't believe that women should ever be abused by men. I also believe that men have a responsibility, a duty to step in and stop any type of abuse which is happening. I believe that divorce for the cases of abuse is just fine. And so does the church that I belong to, the Orthodox Church. They believe that that's true. Okay. The only time that we would step in, and it would be for like when people say irreconcilable differences, like we just don't like each other's faces, then we would probably try to step in and say something along the lines
It's interesting you mention that you belong to a patriarchal system that's known for rampant sexual abuse.
No, that would be the
within
Catholic
the Catholic
Church.
Church. Oh, you're not Catholic?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
Orthodox. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you on the Catholic Church. However, it's not any more rampant than it is in the public school system, Richard.
I'm not sure about that, but
it's not.
If it was,
you know why? Do you know why that is? It's because predators go where the children are. Makes sense.
Well, sure. I'd like to see the statistics. I'm not so sure if that is the case. I'd be very surprised, in fact.
Well, no. I mean, it is the case for sure. And you know, you can just kind of pull it in. There's very few Catholics inside the United States. Of course, you have this massive pool of kids who go to public school. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet for a sexual predator, and sexual predators go where the victims are. So that's why public school sexual abuse is so rampant.
I don't know if it's as high as in the Catholic Church, but I do know of some pretty crazy cases. I think there was an entire school faculty in Los Angeles that had to be replaced because every single member was found to be involved in some predator ring.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm not a Catholic. But this aside, let me be very specific here with what I'm saying. I'm saying that men are the grantors of all rights to women, and that necessarily is always going to be true. Always, everywhere. And it is right now, and they can take them away whenever they want, and women have basically zero recourse except to reapply to men to get those rights again.
Right. Well, even if we were to accept that as true, the point I'm making is there is
do you accept it as true?
Sorry?
Do you accept it as true?
I don't know if I entirely agree with that. To some extent, I agree, but I don't entirely agree with it. But
well, which part do you disagree with of that descriptor?
There's a level of truth to it, but there's a level of distruth. Like, women do have an ability to fight for their rights. Like, you will see, like, I mean, look at some of the protests that are happening in Europe and Ukraine and Russia.
Oh yeah, all those women who are in the street blowing shit up. Come on, man. No, there's not. It's all men for the most part. I would say like 98% is men over there blowing shit up. Come on,
80%.
dude.
We could go with 80%, but
it's overwhelmingly.
Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. Damn dog. It fucking crashed.
Getting good.
Wikipedia for what now? Wait, is there? I haven't used Wikipedia in a long time. I don't know. Yeah, no, there is.
I got a favor to ask. You take a body down to Lakeshore Dock. It's already cut up. It's already you just gotta put it in. Could you take a dead body down to Lakeshore for me? No, don't worry. I already cut it up into tiny bits. You just gotta go there, dump it in, and leave. Pay you $20, man. Hey, man, $20 in this day and age is worth nothing. So I think you're getting a pretty good deal. $20 can get you, well, I don't even know if it can get you a good deal, but it's worth trying. It's a desert planet.
Make me look good.
Arrakis.
Iguna mo, uban joralipa istimbo o.
Quiet, Broga. We're not alone. So, intelligence is now interested in Quesh. Whatever you're trying, this planet will always be the Republic's.
We're just here to ruin your operation.
Can't wait
and
for the Ray
spark
movie.
galactic war.
The Republic won't take your bait. Not while I breathe.
Hope they give her a sexy outfit.
True Jedi need only the Force.
What do I think is gonna happen? Who the fuck are gonna be the bad guys? I think the enemy is gonna be the Patriarch. It's gonna be men versus women. Oh, God.
Watch your step, Jedi.
Tola ula, noja, ichawa joto tu de pita. Ninga ninga kituita, nimo ta move iola.
Nice try, Broga, but you're not weaseling out of this.
I cannot get up the hill.
Rise and shine.
Damn dog.
buck. Yeah.
Please use all products only as intended. Be well.
At your service, sir.
Sounds like a fucking tragedy, dude. Yeah, dude, you gotta go slit your wrists now.
Anonymity, deception. These are your tools. You want to be on top. Gonna need the skills. Come back, you might learn something.
You desire more power? Good.
The Jedi and his hut are dead.
Excellent.
God
The Republic will be
fucking damn it.
furious. You have my thanks, and that of my council.
My life,
We'd
dog.
still be fighting over Quesh's mines if...
I'm very good at my work.
I couldn't agree more. That is why Quesh still needs you.
The Republic's still fighting. Help us pile up enough bodies here, they'll retaliate on other planets, then we'll have our war.
But first, enjoy your victory. Quesh will soon be ours.
Rise and shine.
Going back.
What?
Yeah.
I can see why no one's heard of this place. I think my eyes are burning.
Codename Saber to Codename Leggett. We've been waiting for your all clear. Everything all right?
Things are going surprisingly well.
Glad to hear it. You're part of the team and we worry. Master Koth has another mission for you. He wants you heading to the Hoth system soon as possible. Contact him once you arrive. Saber out.
You wanted to talk?
Hey, you're looking nice. Can we do this a little later? I've got something going on.
Anything I should know about?
Nope, everything's good.
Cleo, why don't we go back to my place? It's a lot warmer than... Oh.
Get out of here, Devin.
It's Dibbin.
Out.
Congratulations. You went home with the wrong girl. And now you're in a bad place.
I swear I don't want trouble. I'm gonna go. You can keep my clothes.
Sorry, he's just a guy. I think he's a dock worker or something. I found him the other night. We had a few drinks and I brought him here. Not a big deal, okay?
If it's not a big deal, you could have been up front.
Sorry, I didn't want you to know. Figured you'd get all possessive like we bonded for life. If you've got a problem, deal with it. I don't owe you anything.
I never said you owed me. I don't think I suggested it.
So what then? You're just gonna stand there? This is stupid, Agent. I'm gonna have a shower.
I've had enough. I can work with you, but I don't think I can live with this anymore.
Fine. Never figured you'd have the brass to want me.
Codename Legate to Base Command. Come in, Base Command.
Base Command receiving, Leggett. Don't be surprised if I cut out. The whole Hoth system is murder on the comms. And not so good for people, either.
I'll keep the signal clear. What's my mission?
Hoth's a frozen rock, not worth much on its own. But years back, it saw one of the war's biggest battles. Hundreds of ships got dragged into the atmosphere, made a sort of a starship graveyard for the best girls in the fleet. You're going to bring one home.
There's got to be a catch.
It's a war zone down there. Republic salvage operations, Imperial SWTORs, and the White Maw. A few thousand pirates who want the scrap for themselves. Plus, the Starbreeze is a Mu-type shuttle. Slip of a thing. Haven't been able to locate her in the wreckage. Our only lead is inside the Imperial Army.
What makes the SIS want this shuttle so badly?
The Starbreeze belongs to the Republic. It's important to us. That's all I can say for now.
If this ship is special, I need to know why. What if I find it damaged? Is it carrying special cargo?
Assume that the Starbreeze is exactly what it seems, and try to preserve its condition. I have faith in your abilities. We have reports that Layak Davos, an Imperial Admiral who fought in the Battle of Hoth, is assembling an expedition to the Starship Graveyard. He's after a long list of salvage, the Starbreeze included. Join Admiral Davos and get that shuttle to us instead.
You'll have the ship before the Admiral knows it's gone.
Codename Hunter will contact you from the field. He's en route to Hoth now. In the meantime, talk to Admiral Davos' search and recovery men at the Imperial base. With any luck, they'll show us the way.
You and me, we're getting good.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Adama space station.
That's the intent.
I'll be scanning you so I can customize your cold weather equipment. Then I'll arrange your briefing. There we go.
Good to have you with us. The men were wondering if they'd get to see the VIP. I'll
If you have
the We were just finishing, Ensign.
This should keep your core body temperature up. When you're ready, report to a pilot in the shuttle bay for transport to the planet.
Colonel Valis at Dawn Base will be waiting for you. Good luck down there.
End of the line. Everybody out. You've got a meeting with Commander Triton.
My briefing said I was to meet a Colonel Vanis.
I don't know anything about that. Commander Triton's the one listed as in charge now. I'm sure he can fill you in on the story. I need to de-ice the shuttle here.
Your advice boils down to doing nothing, and that I cannot do.
Sir, I respect your bravery, but if you see this through personally, you will be dead. And whose leadership will we have then? Ah, the agent. It's good you've arrived. This is Commander Triton, and I am his advisor, Udris.
Lieutenant Halpin sent word you would be coming, and we've never had greater need of you.
Colonel Vanis, the commander of this base, is missing. We fear he's dead, along with all the most experienced men from this base.
It is pleasant to be among such fine company.
We have been here longer than the Empire. It was our breakthrough that first alerted them to the Republic presence.
The Chiss have proven their worth to us, Udris especially, during this emergency.
An emergency that grows more dire every moment the Colonel is missing. This was the distress call we received.
Scout 1 to Dawn Base. Heavy casualties. Taking heavy casualties. We're under attack. We can't see the...
Recordings don't frighten me. I'll go see if I can find out what happened.
Our best case scenario is that Colonel Vanis' communications tipped off the Republic, and he's gone quiet.
But if I were out in that cold, I'd have called for a rescue. If you can find the Colonel, everyone on this base is in your debt.
Satellite's dead. What do your people know about Grid Alpha 9?
Pirate territory, heavily fortified.
Can you get me numbers?
Perhaps, but our manpower is limited.
Manpower? Excuse me. Captain Leo Firth, search and recovery. Saw your docking authorization. You must be our visitor from intelligence.
Come here, Sergeant. What's your name?
Sergeant Athentero, Chiss Expansionary Defense Force, permanently attached to Imperial Search and Recovery. It is an honor to work with our allies in the Empire.
Please excuse us, Sergeant. Your friends in the Chiss Ascendancy know Hoth pretty well, but friendship only goes so far. So, what is it you came here for?
I don't share that sort of thing with captains. Who's your superior?
You want Admiral Davos. Served with him for almost 10 years. But I'm afraid he's not available. He left base with his expedition 36 hours ago. Long-range comms are almost useless in this weather. You want to wait? He'll be back in a few weeks.
Perhaps you can tell that to the Director of Operations yourself.
You think I'm holding something back? Check my record. I'm loyal. Look, there might still be a crew at the expedition launch site. It's where the Admiral's supply line to the Starship graveyard starts. But trying to reach the launch point now is suicide. Weather's bad, and there are Republic commandos in the area.
I don't plan to stay out longer than I have to. But Admiral Davos isn't leaving without me.
Understood, sir. I hope you find what you're after.
Here's what I got. Look quick if you want. Bring your creds back anytime.
You brought us to the wrong planet, Agent. There's nothing here worth having.
Travel route is confirmed.